The 2025 Formula One Belgian Grand Prix, the 13th round of the current championship season, unfolded in a fiercely competitive context where Ferrari aimed to maximize the potential of its SF25 single-seater. It was a demanding and unpredictable race at the historic Spa-Francorchamps circuit, with Charles Leclerc starting from third on the grid behind the two McLaren drivers. Meanwhile, seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton opted for a pit lane start. The British driver's SF25 featured a brand-new power unit and underwent a double setup modification involving both aerodynamics and mechanical components. At the checkered flag, Charles Leclerc crossed the line in third place, while Lewis Hamilton finished only in seventh. The start at Spa was delayed due to weather conditions. One of the first notable elements during the Belgian Grand Prix weekend was the difference in setup between the two Ferrari drivers. Since Lewis Hamilton started from the pit lane, the British driver chose a spoon-shaped high-downforce rear wing configuration to enhance vertical grip. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, retained the low-downforce rear wing that had helped him secure third position in qualifying. The race did not begin as planned due to unsafe track conditions caused by heavy rain. A red flag was shown, and all cars returned to the pit lane. After approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes, the drivers resumed action behind the safety car, completing several laps to assess whether it was safe to race. Eventually, conditions were deemed suitable, and a rolling start was declared instead of the usual grid start. So let's take a detailed look at how events unfolded for the Maranello team in Belgium. After 4 laps behind the safety car, the race officially restarted. From the Ferrari pit wall, engineer Brian Bazzi instructed Charles Leclerc to activate the K2 overboost engine mapping and keep it engaged until exiting turn 12. This strategy aimed to maximize the energy deployment from the hybrid components of the Ferrari power unit. The Monegasque driver held on to third place, attempting to keep pace with the two leading McLaren cars, while Lewis Hamilton was still languishing in 18th position, following closely behind Lance Stroll's Aston Martin. The following lap saw Lewis Hamilton make his first significant move of the race, overtaking Stroll. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc began feeling pressure from behind, as Max Verstappen closed the gap in the Red Bull. Ferrari then issued a clear instruction to both drivers. Tire management was critical. On the straights, they were told to cool the tires by driving offline and to avoid overloading them in corners. In the next 2 laps, Hamilton began his steady recovery, showcasing strong pace with his Ferrari SF25 by overtaking Carlos Sainz, Franco Colapinto, and Nico Hülkenberg. At the same time, Charles Leclerc's situation grew more complicated. He reported a strong understeer issue, just as Max Verstappen began to pressure him even more closely. The Monegasque driver's race pace was clearly inferior to the leading McLaren MCL39 cars, but he managed to stay in front of Max Verstappen thanks to Ferrari's straight-line speed advantage, which helped compensate for a lack of cornering grip due to the low-downforce setup. From the Ferrari pit wall, Charles Leclerc was advised to perform tire-saving measures specifically through turns 5, 10, and 15, in order to extend the life of his intermediate tires. Over the radio, Leclerc expressed concerns that the rear-end instability, caused by the low-downforce aerodynamic configuration, was the root of his tire degradation struggles. As the race moved into the middle of the second sector, Lewis Hamilton overtook Pierre Gasly and began chasing down young British driver Oliver Bearman. Mercedes engineers radioed Hamilton, asking for his opinion on switching to slick tires if the drying line on the track continued to widen. Just 1 lap later, he was called into the pits for medium slicks, in accordance with the pre-discussed strategy. Upon rejoining the track in 17th place, Lewis Hamilton immediately attempted to regain positions using the medium compound tires. His pit stop came 1 lap earlier than Charles Leclerc's, who also switched to medium tires but without any changes to the car's setup. Charles Leclerc rejoined in 6th place, having retained a safe gap to Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton's stop proved well-timed. The British driver climbed up to 7th, gaining ground compared to the early phase of the race. The strategic decisions taken by the Mercedes pit wall allowed him to latch onto the DRS train led by Alexander Albon's Williams. This provided Hamilton with an opportunity to remain close to the points-paying positions. The Ferrari SF25S performed consistently with the medium tires. Charles Leclerc successfully kept Max Verstappen at bay. The Dutch driver, via team radio, complained of traction issues due to power clipping during acceleration, which limited his top speed on the straights. Similarly, Hamilton began to feel the limitations of his higher downforce configuration, which affected his ability to overtake Albon, particularly in the high-speed sectors. Meanwhile, the two McLaren drivers had already opened up a comfortable gap at the front. This middle phase of the race became stable, with most teams managing tire wear and fuel consumption. Hamilton, in particular, received repeated instructions to use lift and coast techniques, especially into turn 10, to preserve tire life. At the halfway mark of the race, now lap 22, the scenario remained largely unchanged. Hamilton managed to put some distance between himself and Albon to avoid turbulent air affecting his performance. With clear air ahead, Charles Leclerc was able to maintain a steady rhythm. His race pace was strong enough to keep Verstappen out of DRS range, although not fast enough to catch the leading McLarens. The race appeared settled, with each team focusing on tire management while waiting for a possible strategic window or an unexpected incident to shake things up. An update on tire conditions for both Ferrari drivers revealed a positive situation. Hamilton asked over the radio whether more rain was expected, but race engineer Riccardo Adami confirmed that dry conditions would continue until the end. For Charles Leclerc, the objective was clear: defend the podium position from Verstappen. For Lewis Hamilton, however, Ferrari's strategy remained less clear, as his second stint pace appeared to drop off. In theory, the Briton had the potential to pass Alex Albon's Williams and then attempt an overtake on George Russell. The earlier fuel-saving efforts using lift and coast should have allowed him to push harder in the closing laps. However, after the switch to slick tires, on-track battles diminished as tire management took priority. With around 14 laps remaining, Lewis Hamilton tried to close the gap to Alex Albon. Despite having more downforce, his Ferrari was unable to convert that into a clear advantage through Sector 2. The Williams driver remained quick, especially through the middle sector and on the straights. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc's situation remained unchanged, with Brian Bozzi continuing to urge him to push. The team suggested using SOC 8 mode to optimize K1 deployment from the hybrid system, but traction issues remained the limiting factor preventing Charles Leclerc from closing the gap to the cars ahead. In the final laps, there were no major changes. Lewis Hamilton had impressed with his recovery drive from the back, and Ferrari's race strategy had been sound. Still, the pace was not sufficient for Lewis Hamilton to improve on 7th place. Charles Leclerc's race was clean and well managed, and his performance with the SF25 ensured he held on to 3rd place ahead of Max Verstappen. The 2025 Belgian Grand Prix came to a close with a strong result for the Maranello team, but also with the awareness that the upcoming Hungarian Grand Prix will require the team to bring more impactful upgrades in order to take another step forward and capitalize fully on the SF25's technical developments.